Hallo, welkom op deze examentraining VWO 2012, tijdvak 2. Vandaag gaan we ons bezighouden met tekst 5, Leaving Nothing to Chance. Als je het voor je hebt liggen, kunnen we beginnen. As usual, we're going to get a general impression of the text and of the questions. Let's have a look at the text first. See what that will tell us without having to read it entirely, just get a general impression. Leaving nothing to chance. And at the top it says, Babies by Design, The Ethics of Genetic Choice by Ronald M. Green. Okay, so we're dealing with a review of a book, Babies by Design, The Ethics of Genetic Choice. So this book apparently, judging by the title, is about the moral issues having to do with designing your baby by manipulating genetics. That's one of a new science apparently. Let's have a look. Here we see a picture of babies in a hospital ward, and let's have a look at the text to see if there's anything that strikes us. Babies by Design. Okay, that's the title of the book under review. A couple of other titles here in paragraph 6. Let's have a look at the second page. Okay, there's a gap text. We'll have to look at the gap words right away. And again, Babies by Design is the title. Nothing particularly striking, really. And then it says here, the author is Arthur Kaplan in New Scientist 2008. And who's Arthur Kaplan? Is voorzitter, chair of the Department of Medical Ethics. So an ethicus, as we say in Dutch. So somebody who has studied the arguments having to do with moral issues. Director of the Center for Bioethics at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Okay. And we see here a word that's been explained. Determinism is the belief that all action and events result from other actions, events, or situations, so people cannot, in fact, choose what to do. And if we look where this word appears, okay, here we see it, at the end of paragraph 8, deterministic. So that means you don't have a choice. It's all related to your previous actions. All right, let's have a look at the top again. Let's put it back at the top, and then let's have a look at the questions. Here goes. Leaving nothing to chance. Question 12. Welk dilemma wordt in alinea's 1 tot en met 3 aan de orde gesteld? Okay, that means we have to read 1 through 3 carefully in order to know what dilemma is put forward. 13. Which of the following agrees with what is stated in paragraph 4? Means we have to read paragraph 4 carefully. 14. Hoeveel key objections noemt Arthur Kaplan in alinea 5? Okay, so blijkbaar Arthur Kaplan, the author of the piece, lists a couple of key objections. Question 15. Which of the following fits the gap in paragraph 7? Okay, when you have a gap question, first thing you do is you write down the Dutch translations of any of those that you don't know. At most means maximum, and not more than at most. Instead, it should be clear. Nevertheless, it should be clear. To be fair, it should be clear. If one of these is not clear, make sure you pause the video and you look them up and you write the translations right next to A, B, C, D to the words. So that when you get to this question when reading the text, you immediately know which one fits. Whereas if at that moment you have to look up the words, it will be much more difficult to find the one that fits. Number 16. What's the point made in paragraph 9? Okay, so that means you have to read paragraph 9 very carefully. 17. Cynics will need more convincing. Laatste zin alinea 10. Citeer de mening van de cynici. Okay, so we have to look what their opinion is. Okay, 18. Which of the following are made clear about green in paragraph 11? So there's 3 statements, and we have to decide which of these statements is Mr. Green? Which of these statements is made clear about Green? And Green was the author of the book that's under review. So we'll have to read paragraph 11 carefully. 19. What's missing from Babies by Design? That's the title of the book. According to the reviewer. Green fails to. De auteur van het boek laat na om. And so we have a choice here. All right, so let's go back to the first question. Welk dilemma wordt in alinea's 1 tot en met 3 aan de orde gesteld? Let's turn to the text again. The text. Here it is. Okay, so we see the first 3 paragraphs. What I'd like to do now is, after reading the paragraph, we're going to put down in the margin what that paragraph is about, just in a couple of words. So you will know, once you've read all 3 paragraphs, what these 3 are about. And then it's easier to answer the question. I'm starting at the top. Every year, children die by the millions from preventable diseases like pneumonia, diarrhea, malaria, HIV, and malnutrition. Poverty and the lack of clean water, hygiene and prenatal care all contribute to the toll of premature death. You either write it in the margin, or if you see words in the text that's are key words in the text, you can just highlight those. And in this one, it's premature death. I would highlight those 2 words because they really indicate what this is about. So many children, millions I would highlight as well. Millions die a premature death. That's what paragraph 1 is about. Paragraph 2. In the face of this Holocaust, those millions of babies dying of all these diseases, why would Ronald M. Green, a professor of ethics at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, spend 279 pages of well-crafted prose defending the claim that it is ethical for parents to create designer children? How much effort is it ethical to devote to improving the lot of the yet to come when balanced against the needs of those in the here and now? So here he sort of juxtaposes the desire to create designer children that haven't been born yet, that are still to be born, and the improvement of the lot of those in need, which were mentioned in paragraph 1. So I would put here in the margin something that to the effect of, here goes, there. There's my text box. I would put something in Dutch I would say, waarom aandacht voor genetische manipulatie wanneer er nog zoveel kinderen in nood zijn. En dan weten we dat het gaat over die ziektes en dergelijke. Dus dat vraagt die reviewer zich af. Dan paragraaf 3. Unfortunately, Babies by Design never directly addresses this question. Met andere woorden, het boek behandelt helemaal niet dit vraagstuk waarom je aandacht moet besteden aan het genetisch manipuleren van kinderen die nog geboren moeten worden, terwijl er zoveel kinderen in nood zijn met al die ziektes en dergelijke. Daar gaat het boek helemaal niet over. It doesn't address it. Daar praat hij niet over. Unfortunately, vindt hij jammer, helaas. The hardest ethical question facing proponents of the genetic engineering of embryos. Green is so distracted by the pace of science in genomics, stem cell research, gene therapy, and pre-implantation genetic diagnosis that the staggering plight of so many existing children never edges into his analytical field of vision. En hier kan je dus zeggen, wat is hier de kern van? What's the gist of this paragraph? Mr. Green is so distracted by the pace of science in genomics, blah, 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 blah. The plight, staggering plight of so many, staggering plight, that's the lot of those children that are living now, never edges into his vision, never edges. In other words, he doesn't even think of those children in need little babies that have been born already. And why doesn't he think of those children? Because he's so enamored, so inspired by the science in genomics, etc. Let's now have a look at the questions. En hier het says, welk dilemma wordt in alinea's 1 tot en met 3 aan de orde gesteld? Nou, omdat we nou samengevat hebben wat die 3 alinea's over gingen, kunnen we dat eigenlijk wel zeggen. Want alinea 1 ging over dat er zoveel baby's die al geboren zijn doodgaan. Paragraaf 2 zegt hij, waarom moet je aandacht besteden aan het manipuleren van genen in ongeboren baby's, terwijl er nog zoveel kinderen doodgaan die al geboren zijn. Besteed daar dan aandacht aan. Dus die kwestie van, is dat ethisch om dat te doen? Daar zoveel aandacht aan te besteden, terwijl er zoveel nog doodgaan. En dan de derde, legt hij dus uit in de derde alinea, dat die Green helemaal dat probleem niet aanboort. Dus wat zou je hier nou opschrijven? Welk dilemma? Dat is het dilemma. Moet er aandacht besteed worden aan het verbeteren van de kansen van ongeboren kinderen, terwijl zoveel levende kinderen grote problemen hebben? Dat is het officiële sleutelantwoord. Dus maar een antwoord met die volgende strekking zou goed zijn. Die strekking zou goed zijn. Ook heb je het anders verwoord. Als je bijvoorbeeld zegt, waar we het net over hadden, waarom moet je zoveel aandacht besteden aan het genetisch manipuleren, terwijl er nog zoveel kinderen doodgaan aan ziekten die we best kunnen behandelen. Maar die 2 elementen moeten dus aanwezig zijn. Vraag 13. Which of the following agrees with what is stated in paragraph 4? Let's have a look at paragraph 4. Be that as it may, dat kan dan wel zo zijn, of afgezien daarvan, zouden wij bijvoorbeeld in het Nederlands zeggen. And as Green makes clear in this engaging book, it is high time we debated the use of genetic technology to enhance children. Oké, dus die Green zegt, het wordt hoog tijd dat we praten over het gebruik van genetische technologie om kinderen te verbeteren. Dus even deze kwestie, dit dilemma, uit de beschouwing gaan laten. Het is toch belangrijk dat we daarover praten. Over die genetische manipulatie. In fact, the debate is unavoidable. In clinics and labs all over the world, we can already see the beginnings of gene-based technology that will permit parents to prevent defects and disability in their offspring, and even endow them with enhanced traits and capacities. First time you read a long sentence like that, it's best to just skip this part between hyphens. Or at least those parents who are economically advantaged. And then later you can read it, but at first read, just skip anything that's between brackets or that's in hyphens, just to get a clear idea of the sentence. So he says that it's important to talk about genetic technology because it's here, it's happening. The disparities between rich and poor will not slow the demand of the rich for more control over the genetic destiny of their children. Because people will want to do it anyway. So whether you talk about it or not, it's going to happen. Genetic technology is going to be applied. So it's best to talk about it. That's what paragraph 4 actually says. Let's have a look at the question to see what alternatives we have. Which of the following agrees with what is stated in paragraph 4? Gene-based medical technologies should no longer be a social taboo. Were they talking about a social taboo? They were just saying we should talk about it. It's not like we should convince people that they should, that don't want to talk about it. It's just that it needs to be talked about. So it's not a taboo at the moment. It's just that we need to talk about it. So that can't be the right answer. B. Genetic engineering will contribute to equality between the rich and the poor. No, that's not true either. The author was saying that even if there's a disparity between the rich and the poor, genetic technology will be applied anyway. So that's not correct. C. It will not be long before it's possible to design children according to personal preference. Okay, that one could be right. That one could be right. Let's check D to make sure that it's not D. The demand for genetic engineering from the rich may make it inaccessible for the poor. No, he didn't say that. He just said that the rich are pushing the issue. They're making everybody talk about it because they're going to do it. So that leaves C. It will not be long before it's possible to design children according to personal preference. And if you look back in the text, you can see at the bottom of the first column, we can already see the beginnings. And then later, if you go underneath the picture, it says gene-based technology that will permit parents. So that actually confirms that will permit parents. It will not be long before it's possible. So that confirms that C is the right answer to 13. Okay, 14. Hoeveel key objections noemt Arthur Kaplan in alinea 5? So we'll have to count. Let's have a look at alinea 5. Alinea 5. Okay. The key objections, okay, it starts with key objections. It makes it easy for us. To tweaking or selecting a child's genes are that it is too risky to try. Okay, risky. That's number one. That children ought not to be treated as objects. Ought not to be treated as objects of manufacture. That's number two. And that children should get the chance to be who they want to be without having to carry the burden of their parents' genetically mediated expectations. Be who they want to be. That's number three. Well, the paragraph isn't finished yet, so let's read on. Furthermore, perhaps here a fourth comes. Furthermore, the arguments go, designing kids will lead to such an unfair advantage for the designees created in labs versus those made in bedrooms or the back seats of cars, that it is simply unjust. Okay. Furthermore, the arguments go. So these are the objections, the four objections, 1, 2, 3. And so this is a fourth objection. Furthermore, and what's the fourth objection made? Designing kids will lead to such an unfair advantage. Okay, so this is number 4, unfair advantage. For the designees created in labs versus those made in bedrooms, that it's simply unjust. So the answer to question 5, hoeveel key objections, is 4. So you would write down het cijfer 4 of het woord 4, maakt niet uit. Question 15. Which of the following fits the gap in paragraph 7? We've already translated those, if you did that when we first looked at the questions. Let's have a look at paragraph 7. And with gap questions, you always have to look carefully at the sentence before the gap and after the gap, because the gap will bridge those two statements, the one before and the one after. But first we have 6. There's no question about 6, but we'll just quickly read it. These arguments, those 4 arguments that we just seen, have been dismantled in other books, notably Jonathan blah blah blah. We don't have to read all that. Green's book does not add much in the way of a new argument. Okay, so these 4 objections have been talked about in other books, and Green doesn't add much. But his prose is crisp and his engagement with the issue sincere. So this is praise for the book. Okay, now comes 7. Of course, risk is an issue. Okay, so that's number 1. Do you see that here? That is too risky to try. So that's key objection number 1. And so paragraph 7 starts with key objection number 1. Of course, risk is an issue. But when we have a technique that is not especially risky, that worry evaporates. Okay, so apparently the technique of genetically manipulation is not very especially risky. So there is no need to worry. Green says concerns about the risk in engineering children amount to the prudent counsel to go slowly rather than not to go at all. And Green is very much in favor of engineering. And he says, Green says concerns about the risk, and there isn't much risk, in engineering children amount to prudent counsel. Okay, let's have a look at the possibilities. We'll just try one after the other. At most, Green says, concerns about the risk in engineering children amount to prudent counsel, to go slowly rather than not go at all, because there's hardly any risk. So if you want to address the risk, just or if people feel a concern, going slowly would be all the amount that you would be everything that you need to do to make sure it goes all right. So at most that could fit. Instead, Green says, concerns about the risk in children. Nay, that doesn't fit at all. Nevertheless, instead and nevertheless are both words that indicate a tegenstelling, something it's the opposite, and that's not happening here. He's just explaining it. And then to be fair, Green says, concerns about, no, it's not to be fair. It's just at most, because the risks aren't really there, and if people have concerns, they could just go slowly, and that will solve it. So at most is the right answer, 15A. 16. What's the point made in paragraph 9? Let's read paragraph 9. Paragraph 9. Okay, there's paragraph 8 first. We'll just read quickly over paragraph 8. What of the claim that children ought not to be manufactured? Okay, manufactured, remember, that was objection number 2, ought not to be treated as objects of manufacture. So he's going to talk about that objection. What about the claim that children ought not to be manufactured? The worry that children become of less value the more they are designed is, in my view, a distant cousin of the argument about how free will is possible in a deterministic world. Well, even if you don't exactly understand what this means, it doesn't matter, because there's no question about this. We'll jump into 9. And here he says, Green does not say enough about the fact that wherever dignity resides, it does not emerge from the means of our creation. So this is about dignity. Wherever dignity resides, it does not emerge from the means of our creation. When assessing a child's worth or moral standing, does anyone ask whether the youngster was born using forceps, spent time in a neonatal intensive care unit, or was conceived in a petri dish? Dignity and worth reside in the person. That's important. That emergence from the gene environment cocktail, and in the social emotional relationships that form between parents and their children. So here you see that dignity is really the key word in this paragraph. Let's have a look at the question. And then here it says dignity and worth reside in the person and in the emotional relationships. The question. A child's chances of success are not dependent on the circumstances of its birth. Not dependent on the circumstances of its birth, that rings a bell. But this first part, a child's chances of success, they were talking about dignity, they weren't talking about success. So that can't be right. B, from a moral point of view, children created in different ways are equal. Right, that could be correct, because he was saying that the dignity and the worth of a child is in the person and in the relationships, and not in the way they were created. And he's an ethics professor, so from a moral point of view, he's speaking from a moral point of view, so this one could be right. C, natural conception is still the more reliable way of producing sound offspring. Nothing was said about that. D, parents opting for a designer child are interfering with their child's free will. Well, that could be true, but that's not what paragraph 9 was about. So that leaves 16b, from a moral point of view, children created in different ways are equal. 17. Cynics will need more convincing. De laatste zin alineatie. Citeer de mening van de cynici. Nou, cynicus is iemand die stelt heel veel vragen bij iemand zijn mening of iemand zijn gedrag. En maakt daar cynische opmerkingen over. Cynics. Oké, laten we paragraaf 10 moeten we gaan lezen. Paragraaf 10. Green is less persuasive than he should be in responding to the claim that designer children will bear the burden of their parents' expectations. Remember that bear the burden of the parents' expectations, that was one of the 4 objections. Because children should have the chance to be who they want to be without having to carry the burden of their parents' genetically mediated expectations. Die moeten niet de last hebben van wat de ouders voor verwachtingen hebben en waarvoor ze dus die genetische manipulatie hebben gedaan. Kinderen moeten daar niet mee belast worden met de verwachtingspatronen van de ouders. Daar gaat deze paragraaf over, 10. Dus nog een keer. Green is less persuasive. Hij is minder overtuigend than he should be in responding to the claim that designer children will bear the burden of their parents' expectations. He insists, hij staat op, that parents will love their kid even if they paid a lot of money for a musical prodigy, only to find the little darling still can't play the piano. Some might like to believe that love will conquer all, but cynics will need more convincing. If a parent has paid a lot of money for a musical prodigy and the child can't play the piano, the parent could be disappointed, is likely to be disappointed. But Green says love will conquer all, but some might like to believe that love will conquer all, but cynics will need more convincing. Let's have a look at the beginning of the what does this mean? Cynics will need more convincing. Convincing of what? Green is less persuasive than he should be in responding to the claim that designer children will bear the burden of their parents' expectations. So he's not very persuasive. He's not convincing. And what is that about? Designer children will bear the burden of their parents' expectations. Because he's not very persuasive in treating this argument, cynics will believe that love will not conquer all. And so if Green had been more convincing, they might have believed that love will conquer all. So the answer is that designer children will bear the burden of their parents' expectations. Then we get to the next question. 18. Which of the following is or are made clear about Green in paragraph 11? Okay, so we have to read paragraph 11. Go back to the text. Paragraph 11. The feared injustice that could result from the rich making designer babies and the poor making babies the old-fashioned way may be real. Dus het kan wel echt waar zijn dat er een onrechtvaardigheid, dat de gevreesde onrechtvaardigheid ook echt gebeurt. De onrechtvaardigheid dat de rijke mensen toegang hebben tot die techniek en de armen die moeten gewoon op de oude manier doen. Green rightly and forcefully argues that social inequity is not an objection to genetically engineering children. Dus hij zegt terecht, Green zegt terecht volgens deze reviewer, dat social inequity, de sociale ongelijkheid, kan niet een tegenwerping zijn voor genetically engineering children. En dat is een sociale issue, terwijl dit is een morele issue. Dus dat kan niet daar invloed op hebben. Rather, it is a concern about unequal access to the goods of society. Dus het verschil tussen arm en rijk is een zorg die te maken heeft met de ongelijkheid van toegang aan de goede dingen die de maatschappij te bieden heeft. Those who bring the objection forward don't seem to realize that the way to avoid a two-class system emerging from the genomic revolution in reproduction is not to stop it, but to ensure access to genetic engineering to all who want to utilize it. So here he says, the problem is not in social inequity. I'm going to highlight that real quickly. That's not the problem. The problem is ensure access. to all who want to. So that's actually the issue. Let's have a look at the question. Oh, 3 statements, remember? Oh, let's read the first one and see if it's true or not. He claims that the issue of social equality should not stand in the way of the genetic engineering of children. That's right. That was the first half of the paragraph was about that. Because there's different types of issues. Social equality is a social issue, whereas the genetic engineering of children is a morality issue. So it should not stand in the way. So that one is true. Is made clear about green. So this is made clear about green. This one is correct. 2, he thinks that genetic engineering might open the way towards social equality. No, he doesn't say that. He says it's 2 different subjects. He doesn't say that it might open or that a link might come into existence. He doesn't say anything about that. So 2 is not true. 3, he points to the need for making genetic engineering available to all. That's right, he was talking about access. It's rather an issue of access for all who would like to. So 1 and 3 are true about green. So which of, from A through E, state 1 and 3? That would be C. Answer C is correct. Answer C. Okay, let's look at the last question of this text. What is missing from Babies by Design according to the reviewer? Green fails to. Green laat na om. Paragraph 12. Let's have a look at paragraph 12. What's missing? Okay, it starts right away with what's missing. So that's easy. What's missing from Babies by Design is any recognition that someone other than a parent might play a role in deciding what traits or capacities ought to be enhanced. I'm going to translate this sentence so you get a clear idea. Wat er mist in het boek is een erkenning dat iemand anders dan een ouder wel eens een rol zal kunnen spelen in het beslissen welke eigenschappen of vaardigheden verbeterd moeten worden. Up till now, we haven't talked about who decides what. You've just assumed that parents would decide what they'd like their future child to have or to be. And Mr. Green in his book doesn't even talk about the possibility that somebody else might be deciding this. Shouldn't we worry, says the reviewer, shouldn't we worry that governments might try to impose standards of design on parents? What about private companies that could spend fortunes trying to guilt or beguile us into making kids that have the traits they happen to sell? And so he poses 2 questions about governments and companies and commercial interests that might influence parents one way or the other. And that discussion is missing from the book. Let's have a look at the question again. What's missing? Let's look at it. Green fails to acknowledge that genetic engineering may produce socially unacceptable traits in children. No, he doesn't talk about that. Because when it's genetic engineered, you can decide what you want to do. And so you would just not choose an unacceptable trait. So that's nonsense. B, recognize that a third party may well want to be involved in deciding which genes should be manipulated. That's right. And the third party, that phrase over here relates to the government and the company that he was talking about, commercial interests. So that could be correct. C, take into account in what way governments or private companies will profit from genetic engineering. It wasn't a matter of profiting, it was a matter of wanting to decide which traits should be manipulated. Wanting to decide, not so much profit. So that's not correct. So the correct answer to 19 is B. 19B. Let's go back to the text. And here we see that there's another paragraph with no question. So we'll read that real quickly. Green's book is worth reading. Whatever your view on the ethics of designing our descendants, even if he fails to persuade you that it is moral to do so, he will definitely get you thinking. So Arthur Kaplan wasn't very much impressed by what Green had to say about these various issues, but he definitely thinks it's a good book and it gets you thinking. So his judgment is favorable. All right, that was it for today. Thank you for joining me and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.